How might we statements are a great technique for framing problems, and we're going to dive into exactly how this works, the pros and the cons, and how you can start using this technique today for your team. If you haven't seen the previous video 1 in our series, I will put a link in the description and you can go check that out. You may already be familiar with the how might we statement from the design sprint. If you already know about the design sprint, great. But if you haven't, you can check out this book. It's called Sprint and it is about running a design sprint. Everything you need to know. It's really easy to read, really fun, very engaging, and it is literally the tool that Google Ventures uses to solve a lot of their big problems. Also, lots of other companies have been using it to great success, and we talk about it sometimes on this channel. So check out the book Design Sprint if you haven't already. The how might we statement, or the how might we technique, sometimes shortened to HMW, is a workshopping technique, and as we said, it's from the design sprint. It's used for collaborative decomposition of problems and to also frame the problem so that we can see the problem from different angles, different perspectives. You can use the how might we technique for both remote and in-person teams. I'll be showing you how to do this in Mural. You can use this in any whiteboarding tool, and you can also do it in person with actual sticky notes. If you want to learn more about how I use tools, I did a video of Menti versus Mural. I'll also leave a link to that. So how does it work? In asking how might we take a problem and reframe it and turn it into a challenge. Instead of focusing on the negativities that are associated with the problem, we instead look at opportunities. Now, how might we statements tread a very thin line between framing a problem and going into solution mode. You have to be very disciplined to not cross over to the dark side. So be aware that the questions that you are asking with the how might we technique are actually related to the problem and related to the information that we're getting from the user, and not fast tracking to solution mode and thinking, how might we solve this problem? Now, how might we statements can be used for that, but in this case, we're focused on problem framing. So we're going to look at now how we can use the how might we statement to better understand a problem. Let's say the team's been brainstorming problems within or marketing, for instance, and one of the problems that was highlighted and voted to the top and something that we really want to look at is Instagram stats. And what's currently written down is our Instagram stats keep declining. Now compare that to rephrasing it with a how might we question. How might we gain better engagement with our audience through social media? Now we can see the difference between these two statements. One showcases the problem at face value, showing that, yes, this is a problem for us, versus rephrasing it as a how might we statement. It transforms that problem into a challenge. Language is very important to problem reframing. In the case of the how might we statement, believing in what's possible opens our minds to options previously closed off from us. You may not get this right first time round, and that's absolutely fine. The process of coming up with how might we statements is actually a brainstorming session where the team has a problem and everybody writes multiple how might we statements. We then stick them up on a board and we go through these using a process. So don't get caught up in, I need to write the perfect how might we statement, or else we're not going to be able to reframe this problem correctly. You don't have to worry about that kind of pressure because the process takes care of that risk. So what does the process look like? Step 1 is that we uncover all of the problems that exist in the sphere that we're looking at. Once everyone's brainstormed or the time is up, then we go through the standard ideation process of taking away the duplications, sorting the sticky notes into categories so that everyone may understand what's on the table. And then we may go into a vote, a heat map vote to see what are the most important problems that we really need to solve, the things that are priority for the team, and then we re-visualize this on the board so we can see the top voted items and the lowest voted items. Now, you don't have to use a workshop to gather this input. This is just one way of doing it. Step 2, we select the problem that falls at the top of the list. And now it's time to generate how might we statements relative to this problem. So how do we introduce this to the team? This is what we say. Now we're going to be doing a technique called how might we statements. What we want to do is to look at this problem that's been voted at the top and to write how might we statements relating to that problem. And once they know how to do it, then we give them time to write as many how might we statements as they can. The process is now similar to brainstorming. Once the time is up, we'll go through the how might we statements, remove duplicates, re-visualize and sort them out into categories, and then vote on the top how might we statements. Your participants have now taken on the challenge to reframe the problem together. And this is why diversity is important, because we can gather multiple perspectives before jumping into solutions. We now go beneath the surface of the problem. All of these things start coming to light, and then we can start looking at where we focus our time, where we focus our energy into solutions later on. So how might we statements may feel a little bit daunting at first, but once you explain it, the team gets into flow and they will start generating multiple ideas. I personally am always so impressed at how much information comes from these sessions, the different angles that are brought up, things that I personally would not have thought of in creating these sessions. The people who are involved in the brainstorming of these how might we statements, they really end up uncovering a multitude of perspectives to reframe a problem with. So trust your team, trust in the creativity of your team. Once you explain the process, they're good to go. So some key points that I wanted to tell you about problem framing with the how might we technique. There are many ways to problem frame. One size doesn't fit all, and the how might we technique is just one of the many techniques out there and one of the many techniques that we're going to be covering in this series. You may need to chop and change some of these techniques. You may need to group them together and do multiple layers of problem framing to really fully understand the problem. But this is a great start. The how might we technique is a great tool to have in your team's arsenal as it shifts how they think about problems from multiple angles and perspectives. As I said, cover your bases with a diverse crowd. So let's recap. Pros of the how might we statements. Pretty easy to follow. You can do it in a workshopping setting or in a standard meeting. It changes the way your team thinks about a problem. You can cluster it with different activities and chop and change as necessary to start uncovering the different angles to a particular problem. And now some of the disadvantages of the how might we statement. One of the main ones is that it can tread a very thin line between jumping directly into solutions and understanding the problem. As the facilitator of a how might we session or a how might we activity, what you want to do is to encourage the team and to guide them into considering the problem as it stands and not necessarily a solution. So you have to be pretty strong here and you have to know your stuff in order to keep your team on track. Otherwise, you're jumping into solution mode quicker than you realize. And another risk with how might we statements is that sometimes we can't have that diverse group of people on board. And because of that, we end up reframing in a very narrow way. If this is the case, then you're going to need another technique to bolster your problem framing. And that's absolutely fine. And it's something that we're going to cover in future videos during this series on problem framing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for subscribing if you have already, and if you haven't, just click the bell notification. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.